Friends and colleagues, we are going to start this side event momentarily, so please be ready. Okay, welcome to our side event, Challenging Issues of Environment, Climate, Institution, and Policy under SDG Regime. This is a joint side event by JICA緒方貞子Research Institute for Peace and Development, Hosei University, and Oberlin University, Institute for Global Environment and Strategies, and Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan. My name is Makoto Kato, General Manager of the Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan. I'm happy to take the role of MC today in Glasgow here. Today's event has been registered by more than 110 or 20 overseas participants online, and also we have attendees in Glasgow here in Japan Pavilion. So we would like to have an exciting side event for, in an exchangeable manner. Thank you very much for your participation. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Ryo Fujikura, Hosei University, Japan, to deliver a welcome remarks. Fujikura Sensei, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to our side event. I'm Fujikura from Hosei University. The Paris Agreement has identified not only funding and technology, but also the capacity building of organization and human resources as means of implementation. Donors are expected to make further efforts to strengthen the capacity of developing countries. Japan has been cooperating intensively with Southeast Asian countries at various stages, from policy formulation to implementation. Our international cooperation is characterized by a bottom-up approach in which the socio-economic situation of the recipient country is thoroughly surveyed, and a tailor-made program is formulated and implemented. Therefore, it takes time from project preparation until implementation. But I think this is inevitable. As a result, the cooperation is highly appreciated in the countries. Post-project evaluation is essential to improve the quality of assistance. Inputs, outputs, and outcomes of the project have been measured and evaluated. However, regarding the capacity building project, it is still unclear what should be used as outcome indicators. It has not been easy to objectively indicate whether the capacity has been actually developed or not. The first presentation in this seminar will be about Japan's support for preparation of greenhouse gas inventory in Indonesia. Although preparing an inventory is a sophisticated but humble task, it is essential to increase transparency. Fortunately, in Indonesia, the president has launched an active climate change policy, and the ministry in charge of the environment has been strengthened. We found that Japan's support for inventory preparation had catalyzed further strengthen the organization. I believe that this is the substantial outcome of capacity building. The second presentation is a study on the policies of local government in Vietnam. Needless to say, the relationship between the national and the local governments differs greatly from country to country. But the role of the local government in mitigation and adaptation is extremely important in every country. Donors must have a solid understanding of this to develop an appropriate program of cooperation. JICA has conducted thorough research on local governments in Southeast Asian countries and has provided support not only to the national government, but also to the local governments. Here will be also reports from Iskandar, Malaysia, and Bangkok, Thailand. Transparency and local governments may not necessarily be the central subject of discussion at this COP26, but they are very essential elements for substantial climate change measures. Unfortunately, this seminar was not physical but online. The Japanese government has been still issuing a travel advisory for all Japanese citizens, and my trip was not permitted by my university. However, I am glad that my friends, not only from Japan, but also from Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand were able to join us here online. I hope that the finding of this side event will be widely shared and contribute to future climate change measures. At last, but not at least, I would like to express my gratitude to JICA, the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, and Mitsui Environment Fund for providing funding for the research presented here. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the following presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Fujikura, for your very kind words to welcome our presenters as well as participants. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ichiro Adachi, Director and Executive Senior Research Fellow, JICA緒方貞子Research Institute of Peace and Development. Adachi-san, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kato. Just I'd like to share one presentation slide. Please wait for a while. Okay. So, sorry, it's better to stop. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Kato-san. So distinguished guest. And thank you all for participating in today's side event session. It is co-organized by JICA, IGES, Hosei University, Open University, and OECC. So my name is Adachi, Executive Senior Research Fellow at the JICA緒方貞子Research Institute for Peace and Development. So we call JICA ORI. Professor Fujikura has just told you about the background and objectives of today's session. From me, I would like to explain about JICA ORI's research, which is the basis of today's session presentation. Firstly, I would like to briefly introduce JICA ORI. Well, so the JICA ORI carries on and enhances the philosophy of the late緒方貞子and is established as the JICA Research Institute in October 2008. Our objectives are to conduct policy-oriented research on the challenges faced by developing countries in the field and show Japan's intellectual efforts in the international community. We attach high importance to synthesizing and sharing the Japanese development experience, as well as its accumulated knowledge and expertise as a donor country. We will also enhance our research and dissemination activities, giving due consideration to today's challenges and threats such as the changing international order, the transition to an information-based society, and climate change. By doing so, we aim to become a leading research hub for development and international cooperation. Based on these objectives, our vision is co-creating practical knowledge for peace and development. So, in the field of climate change issues, we already published some results. The two books, Climate Change, Adaptation and International Development, edited by Professor Fujikura, just who present the opening remark in this session, and some other working papers have been published. please visit to the JICA ORI homepage. And in the global environmental issue, JICA ORI, we are conducting one research project, which is titled is the challenging issues of environment, climate change institutions, and policy under the SDGs regime. In this study, we conduct case analysis of each country's efforts and try to identify difficulties for implementing environment, climate change issues, climate change policies. Sorry. And I'd like to touch this session research project just I mentioned. Firstly, the background of the survey. Already you know well, under the SDG and Paris Agreement, there is a shift from developed countries providing support to developed countries' world to developing countries themselves taking action on climate change. On the other hand, we consider that there are challenges and difficulties in promoting initiatives based on the Paris Agreement in developing countries. So, for example, trial policy and institution for the CC climate change issues in each country are quite various, and so needs for cooperation also is very wide. To enhance any cooperative activities, we should take care of each government's strategy and contents of activities. Second, enforcement of climate change policy, each government should have more capacity for developing NDC, National Determined Contribution, and conducting MRV, and the government's effort is very important. And finally, policy and plan development has made great strides in developing countries, and there are still many challenges to be overcome in implementation. From this point of view, it is important to carry out research activities to identify these causes. And I would like to add one more thing, and bottom-up cooperation such as collaboration among cities is one of the characteristics of Japanese cooperation. This cooperation leads to more effective climate change planning. Finally, I would like to introduce this session's program. So, past session, already saw Professor Fujikura mentioned about this, so I'd like to very briefly touch about this matter. Anyway, so in first session, it focuses on the national level government cases, and in second session, it focuses on the local government cases. So based on this session direction, the session's program, so climate change policy and enforcement in the national government level. So Dr. Kanishi will present about the case of Indonesia, and Dr. Memia present the transparency and the reporting issue in Asia Pacific region. And in the second session, climate change policy enforcement in the local government, Mr. Fukuda presents about the Vietnamese case, and Professor Ho so presenting as model case, and Malaysia Iskandar and their trial. And finally, Professor Wonkot, long-term capacity development research activities. He presents this issue. So each session has a discussion time, and we invite some more commentator. We will respond to any question during this discussion time as much as possible. Through these discussions, we will find and share important issues for tackling climate change, which will become even more important in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adachi-san, for walking us through the structure of this side event, including for very rich presentations and presenters today. Now, we are going to jump into the first batch of the presentations. First, I would like to invite Dr. Masato Kawanishi to introduce capacity development for national greenhouse gas inventory lessons learned from JICA's technical cooperation. Kawanishi-san, please.
Thank you, Kato-san. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kato-san, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Kawanishi. I'm Senior Advisor on Climate Change for JICA. Today, I'm going to share some lessons from JICA Technical Cooperation on National GHG Inventory. Professor Fujikura and my other colleagues and I produced a paper titled From Project to Outcome, the Case of National Greenhouse Gas Inventory in Indonesia, which will soon be published by JICA Ogata Research Institute. In this paper, we analyzed how and under what conditions technical cooperation may generate catalytic effects on endogenous development, capacity development in developing countries. To this end, we used the case of Indonesia, where the task for producing GHG inventories used to be outsourced to external experts, but is now internally managed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, KLHK. We proved how this change has been possible in Indonesia. We find that through interactions with crucial changes in the institutional environment, the technical cooperation played as a catalyst for long-term capacity development. We applied what is called a model for strategic issue diagnosis. In this matrix, the vertical axis represents a level of perceived issue urgency, while the horizontal axis indicates a level of perceived issue feasibility. The cell 1 represents a case where an issue is perceived as neither urgent nor feasible, and therefore impetus to act is absent. On the other hand, cell 4 indicates the case where the issue is perceived as urgent and its resolution is assessed as feasible. This is a case that will generate the greatest momentum for change. This is a model we applied. And then by using this analytical model, we traced the interpretations at the ministry about the national GHG inventory issue since the time that when the UNFCCC entered into force. We conducted the participant observation and interviews, which indicated that there are 3 distinct phases of the issue interpretations at the ministry. We call these as parking, run-up, and takeoff phases in the chronological order. We find the two key events in the institutional environment as most crucial and therefore consider as the starting points for run-up and takeoff phases, respectively. First, the country's quantitative emission reduction commitment was first announced by then President in 2009, which raised the significance of the national GHG inventory as the foundation for tracking progress towards the mitigation target. Second, with the restructuring of the government in 2014, the KRHK was given a much greater authority relating to climate change, which had a substantial effect on their perceived responsibilities for managing this issue. National GHG inventory used to be an isolated issue during the parking phase. However, it came to be assessed as more urgent as it went through run-up and takeoff phases. In the meantime, JICA technical cooperation on the national GHG inventory issue was implemented for 5 years from 2010. It started in response to the presidential announcement for emission reduction commitment, which raised the needs for more reliable estimations of emissions. Staff of the ministry were actively involved in the implementation of this technical cooperation, which raised their perceived issue feasibility. As I mentioned before, the task for producing GHG inventories was used to be outsourced to a limited number of external experts. However, for the country's second BUR, which was submitted 2018, internal staff for the ministry produced a GHG inventory on their own for the first time. External experts provided technical advice only. According to the interviews, the technical cooperation raised the perceived issue feasibility, but also they affected the issue urgency, in particular through its pilot activities. The pilot activities aimed at the methodological improvements of GHG inventories in the waste sector in the selected 2 provinces. Until then, Indonesia had been heavily reliant on the use of so-called IPCC default values. However, which however inevitably resulted in an uncertainty of reported GHG inventories. In response, we collaborated for collecting more accurate activity data and developing country-specific parameters. And the impacts of these methodological improvements on the reported GHG inventories turned out to be substantial. As shown in these graphs, the methane emissions from solid waste disposal sites, for example, reduced by 37% in the North Sumatra province and by around 30% in the South Sumatra province. These reductions were not due to climate change mitigation actions, but due to purely methodological improvements in GHG inventories. This has huge implications for the ministry. They recognize that there is much to do for more reliably estimating emissions. Thus, the national GHG inventory issue came to be defined by the ministry as a problem that must be addressed with urgency. As I mentioned before, there are some crucial changes in the institutional environment. And JICA Technical Cooperation interacted with these changes and raised the issue urgency, perceived as issue urgency and feasibility as perceived at the ministry. This generated over time momentum for the ministry to take their own actions to address their situation, which endogenously stimulated their further capacity development even after our technical cooperation came to an end. This matrix illustrates the changing positions of issue interpretations at the ministry. As I mentioned, the national GHG inventory used to be an isolated issue. However, over time, it came to be assessed as more urgent and more feasible to resolve at the ministry. This shift, as indicated by this blue line, represents the endogenous capacity development path of the ministry concerning national GHG inventory. this shift would not have been possible by the technical cooperation alone, as a matter of course. However, this shift has been larger and faster than what would have been the case without the technical cooperation. Conceptually speaking, the longer-term outcome, in other words, the catalytic effects of the technical cooperation can be given by the distance between the points A and B. The paper I very briefly introduced today will be soon published by the JICA Ogata Research Institute. And the full paper will be freely made available at this site. That's all from me, and thank you very much for your attention. Kato-san, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kawanishi, for your presentation. Now, I would like to invite for the next speaker, Dr. Chisa Umemiya, Research Manager of IGES, who is talking about capacity development for transparency and reporting, sharing experiences from the Asian Pacific region. Umemiya-san, please.
Thank you, Kato-san, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here today with Kawanishi-san and all, and also to contribute to this very important event by sharing some of our research results on capacity building for transparency and reporting in the Asia-Pacific region. I would like to begin my presentation by highlighting two key messages that I would like to deliver with my presentation today. The first key message is that there have been increasing successful cases of transparency capacity building in the region, and this is a very positive news for us. And second key message is that next step to go for us to move forward is how to ensure those successful cases could be spread even over countries with currently low capacity. In the first part of my presentation, I'll touch on the first key message, and in the second part of my presentation, I'll touch on the second key message. We at IGS, where I work, my colleague Murun-san and myself and some others have conducted a survey titled Solution for Three Common Challenges in National Reporting in the Region. As you may agree with me, we often talk about the challenges, but less frequently talk about existing solutions for those common challenges. Therefore, we conducted a survey to understand what kind of existing solutions there are in the region to address common challenges. Common challenges that we addressed in our survey, challenge number one is unclear roles and responsibilities of key ministries and other stakeholders engaging in greenhouse gas inventory preparation and other elements of reporting. And challenge number two was lack of human resources and technical expertise. And challenge number three was difficulty in collecting data and information to prepare national reporting. To do this survey, firstly, we conducted a country questionnaire survey asking 6 countries in the region what kind of existing solutions there are in their country to address these common challenges. Later on, as a step 2, we had a group discussion session at the Asian Transparency Workshop, which we organized in December 2020 with the support of the Ministry of the Environment, Japan. And we asked participants there which solution of those have been collected with the questionnaire survey they would recommend collectively based on the experience as the preferable solution to address those common challenges. I'd like to share some of the results of the survey. This is the recommended solution to address challenge number one, unclear roles and responsibilities of key ministry and stakeholders engaging in national reporting preparation. And with the survey, we ask about the short-term solution and long-term solution. And in this table, countries' representative collectively recommended 2 short-term solutions and 1 long-term solution. And on your right side, right part of this table indicating underlying factors why country participants recommended this solution. Efficiency refers to consideration to utilize existing tools or materials to minimize input resources such as additional labor and time to complete this task. Accountability refers to consideration to enhance ownership of tasks for both governmental and non-governmental stakeholders. And sustainability indicates consideration on whether solution can maintain a country's long-term ability. And against this challenge number one, our country collectively suggested as short-term solution assigning a main coordinating institution to direct roles and responsibilities for key ministries, as well as establishing data sharing agreements and MOU at the organization level with key ministries. As a long-term solution, country collectively recommended to establish a national legal framework to officially document institutional arrangements in detail in order to maintain reporting preparation process. Coming to the challenge number 2, which is a lack of human resources and technical expertise, country collectively recommended the 2 short-term solutions and 1 long-term solution. As short-term solution, for example, collaboration with domestic university and research institutions was recommended. And for long-term solution, establishing university programs related to climate change and transparency issues was recommended in order to foster technical expertise of next generation to engage in national reporting. And what I'd like to stress with this survey is that there are existing solutions to common challenges that we have faced in the region. So the question is why some countries can already implement these solutions while other countries have not yet implemented them. I move on to the second part of my presentation. We at IGS have conducted a global assessment of greenhouse gas inventory capacity in countries with the support of the UNDP Global Support Program. Greenhouse gas inventory capacity, I mean by indicating the capacity of a country to prepare a greenhouse gas inventory in response to international reporting requirements. And we define greenhouse gas inventory capacity index that it consists of 3 major dimensions, which are number 1, country context, number 2, institutional structure, number 3, technical skills and knowledge. And each dimension is represented by a list of criterion and corresponding indicators. And with this quantifiable greenhouse gas inventory capacity index, we assess the capacity of a country to prepare greenhouse gas inventories across 133 countries in the world and across their different submissions, from the first submission towards more recent submission. And based on that indicator, we found there are major 5 patterns of greenhouse gas inventory capacity change in countries across submissions. And broadly, these patterns can be classified into 2. Pattern 1 and 2 indicates the capacity change pattern that have for the country that have had high capacity from their first inventory to the more recent inventory submission, and also the pattern that indicates the improvement of capacity over time. On the other hand, this red arrow indicates the country's capacity change pattern that remain to be low across submission. We found low greenhouse gas inventory capacity countries tend to particularly lack decent scientific and statistical capacity as part of the country context dimension. In addition, low greenhouse gas inventory capacity tended to struggle to establish institutional structure that enables engagement of different organizations and systematic and continuous compilation and improvement of greenhouse gas inventory in the context of institutional structure. And this map represents how the different 5 patterns are spread across 133 countries. And as I mentioned, blue color indicates the countries that have had a higher capacity, and lower is, on the other hand, remain to be low capacity. Roughly half of developing countries are in better greenhouse gas inventory capacity than the other half. And coming to our discussion today, Asia Pacific has a country with various capacity status change pattern, and it's not a single capacity change pattern. So a very important question for us is to address how can we ensure low capacity countries can even improve their capacity in the coming years to come. And based on our research, our answer at this point is that basic capacity in the country context, such as statistical and scientific capacity, these fundamental capacity elements needs to be recognized and addressed in the building up the capacity. Otherwise, changing this situation might be difficult. So I stop here my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umemiya, for your very nice presentation. I think you have unpacked the elements and also the how capacity developments are happening across different countries, well, and parties to the UNFCCC and developing world. This is very nice to understand what you presented today. So we have heard about the 2 presentations today for related to the greenhouse gas inventory and technical cooperation. Here, I would like to open the floor for question regarding this GH inventory related issues. If we have questions for in Glasgow here, we'd like to open the floor first here, and also then meantime. Those who have questions who are online, well, maybe you can provide your question at the chat room. So first, I would like to invite questions or comments, for if there's any, here in Glasgow regarding. Okay, well, there is a gentleman. Could you introduce yourself first of all, and then provide questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is George Bunsharu. I'm coming from Cameroon. We have quite suitable discussion with JICA and Japanese government. And I was interested to come here and know what is really your challenge about Africa, Central Africa, and particularly Cameroon. And I was just afraid because on what we have been doing with JICA and what we have been planning with JICA, all our solicitation with JICA did not appear here, and I just questioned myself, is Central Africa is one of your preoccupations finally, and even is Cameroon is quite interested, Japan, because we are now in deep discussion how to finally help Cameroon on follow-up of the cover of the forest in our all area, because for us, climate change is a big challenge. But I don't know whether we can have answer. They asked me to come and follow this conference, but I don't know what I can go back and answer, and how to continue discussion if finally it's not a main issue for the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very good question, actually. If there's any other question from the floor here, I would like to invite another one. Do you have any? Okay, at this point of time, we have one question from Glasgow, and this question has been addressed to JICA. So perhaps for Kawanishi-san, were you able to hear the question?
Sorry, Kato-san.
Yes.
Kato-san.
Yes.
Bit difficult here.
Okay.
So
I will rephrase actually. Yeah.
Could you pass that question to me?
Okay. Yes. Well, there is a gentleman from Cameroon, and he is interested in. Well, first of all, the presentation didn't include Cameroon's and African case, so that he would hope that in future, African case regarding greenhouse gas inventory development may be included. And his next submission is that whether the door is open for Cameroon and African countries for the capacity development cooperation regarding greenhouse gas inventory, and how does it happen? If you have any advice to him.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your interest in working with us on the national GHG inventory. In fact, today I just introduced the case of Indonesia. Our technical cooperation project on national GHG inventory started around the year 2010. We originally initiated with two countries. One was Indonesia, as I mentioned. The other was Vietnam. And right now we are working together with two countries, other two countries. One is Papua New Guinea, and the other is Mongolia. And we are now conducting a study to identify potential countries with which we may be able to initiate a new cooperation on national GHG inventory and other elements in relation to transparency. So actually we are open to possibility. We are not limited our technical cooperation to Asia. We still have a few examples of cooperation on national GHG inventory. As I mentioned, so far 4 countries. So if you are interested, please contact our country office in your country. Thank you very much expressing your interest. It's very encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Dr. Kawanishi. I think my friend's submission from Cameroon, well, this actually will delights us if you are interested in greenhouse gas inventory related cooperation. And then I think you're invited to talk to JICA, if your country has JICA national representative office or Japanese embassy, so that that's maybe immediate step that you're invited to take. Thank you very much for your question. Okay, are there any questions from the audience online? If there's any, you're invited also. Raise your hand or maybe provide questions in the chat room. Okay, meanwhile, two participants raised their hands. Okay, maybe you could, can we invite them to speak? Okay, please. Mr. or Miss Sadaf Haida. Could you unmute? Sadaf? With your hands up? Okay. Okay, he's muted. Okay, so meanwhile, maybe you can write out a question in the chat room. I am taking up another question so that you have probably have time to speak. Okay, Kawanishi-san, please.
Thank you. I have just one question to Memiya-san. Is okay? I read Umemiya-san's previous paper on national GHG inventory, and Umemiya-san mentioned that the regions has some model countries for other countries to emulate. Is it possible to indicate which countries would be a potential model country, say, in Asia, from your point of view? Thank you.
Okay, Mimiya-san, please.
Thank you for the question. Yes, it is possible from our research results. Model country, from our point of view, is a country which has improved capacity across submission time. So, which had lower capacity previously, but now have improved capacity. And Indonesia, exactly, I think is one of those countries that we include as a model country. But there are several others. I presented the map with different colors. And to be precise, I probably better to go back to my original data set, not to make a mistake. But I'm happy to share this presentation material and also probably check again my database. And while other people are speaking, I'll try to type the country name, if you allow me, during this session.
Thank you very much, Umemiya-san.
I think that's a very interesting point for that. Well, there are some countries in the region that provides kind of like a model for others to follow. And because the regional approach is currently, it's a very, many people say like a regional approach will, especially for greenhouse gas inventory and then also preparation for the enhanced transparency framework, well, that's coming very soon. I think that's one way to highlight, to accelerate our cooperation for capacity development. So that's a very interesting point, I believe. Okay, are there any other questions? If not, I would like to invite Professor Fujikura. Also, maybe you can provide comment or advice to the researchers here, if there is any, for their papers.
Thank you very much. But I'm quite agreed that with Dr. Umemiya, and so it is actually amazing to see that how the Indonesia improved their capacity to prepare the GHG inventory. So I do not know any more good example countries. So I think we should further investigate how such kind of improvement became possible. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the transparency issue is actually one of the hot topic from, of course, for so far, but from now on, I think the level of urgency is becoming much more higher, and now the negotiators are in the negotiation room are intensively discussing how the practical operational framework is being developed for towards the first batch of biennial transparency report coming in 2024. So I really wish you a good luck to JICA and also to IGES and also their partners to move forward really good cooperation activities. And I think these research work really contribute to it. Fujikura Sensei, you have hands up.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm really wondering whether high-level decision makers really understand the situations. What is the capacity building? How the people are struggling with these issues? So I think we should further distribute our results and share our results to the upward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that's important because greenhouse gas inventory is highly technical, and experts with high technical knowledge, well, they understand very well. But how do you elevate this very technical issue to high-level decision makers? Umemiya-san, maybe as your final comment, perhaps we can provide some insight regarding this. I know you are also concerned about this kind of technical and also political challenge.
Thank you, Kato-san. And I echo what Fujikura Sensei has mentioned. And to me, research is one way to prove the record of what has happened. And those detailed evaluation research is still limited. And what Kawanishi-san has presented is very impressive. I think it is one of the few that look at what has happened and what kind of impact has been made. And I really think those case studies need to be conducted in more countries. African countries have been mentioned, so including those countries, we need more cases of what has happened in the previous 2 decades for implementing these capacity building activities, and what we have achieved and what we have not been able to achieve. So what I presented was more of a global comparative study, and this is one, but I would think what we need also is a more detailed case study evaluating the impact of capacity building.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're waiting for your further cases coming from IGES and also other parts of the world. Thank you very much. So with this, I would like to conclude the first batch of the presentation that was about the greenhouse gas inventory. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation and also arguments here. Now, I would like to invite you to jump into the next batch of presentation, which is about question what causes the implementation gap in the city-level climate actions, and to introduce the research activities and updates. I would like to invite Mr. Koji Fukuda, Chief Advisor of JICA project to support the planning and implementation of NDC in Vietnam. Fukuda-san, please.
Okay, thank you, MC. May I confirm you can hear me well?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for a kind introduction. I'm Koji Fukuda, currently spearheading JICA's technical cooperation to support the NDC implementation in Vietnam. And it's my pleasure to be part of the event today. And it's so nice to see Dr. Ho and Dr. Wongcott and Dr. Lam as a virtual reunion today. And I'm going to upload my slide. Can you see the slide on the screen?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, great. Okay, so under this JICA Research Institute, we have been working on the theme of climate actions and the role of cities in Southeast Asia. And on behalf of the three the co-authors joining us today, I'd like to just briefly share the key findings of our analysis entitled What Causes the Implementation Gap in City-Level Action Plan. And that taking this opportunity, I just wanted to thank also Dr. Lam for helping us undertake the field survey to go to cities. So without that, we couldn't have done this. So thank you very much. So starting with the background, as you recall, the Paris Agreement highlights the role of non-state actors as the agent of implementation. Especially, we witnessed the increasing momentum of urban cities taking part in climate actions across the globe in the past few years. And engagement of cities in climate actions initially started mostly in the country in global north, but nowadays we see the countries, developing country cities are also picking up and increasing engagement through the city level actions. And Vietnam is no exception to this, and we witnessed the gradual participation of local authorities in the form of action plan development, guided by national level programs and policy development. And what the previous study suggests is that while the formulation of climate change action plan by local authorities go rather smoothly, there's a few evidence of how well those action plans are actually implemented and progressed. And we also keep hearing that cities do face multitude of challenges when it comes to transitioning to implementation. So against this backdrop, this analysis, we aim at exploring what are the key factors influencing the implementation city-level action plan, and what causes deviation of the progress among cities using Haiphong and Ho Chi Minh as a case studies. And this slide basically summarizes where our analysis fit in the overall picture of the progress of city-level climate change action plan in Vietnam. As you can see, this is relatively new research domain. It only started taking off in the mid-2000s. And previous studies focused rather on formulation aspect of the action plan, including its processes and contents. So value added of our analysis is to look into implementation aspect as a next step. But we need to keep in mind that there's a limitation, and because the current, most of the current climate action plans of cities are mostly qualitative, meaning that the plan does not subscribe numerical targets such as greenhouse gas emission reduction target. So we do not go into impact analysis per se. And to undertake this factors analysis, we selected both Haiphong City and Ho Chi Minh City as our target cities based on multiple reasons, including the city's placement as a leading city in country, the status as the early mover for formulating climate change action plan, the share of country's GDP, the first and third largest city in the country, and also observed proactiveness in undertaking city-level climate green development. And because the starting year of engaging climate change action plan differ from one city to another, so we try to control by looking at the existing action plan to harmonize implementation period. And we assessed implementation based on the progress report of fiscal year 2019, supplemented by stakeholder interviews. And for both cities, we examined about 56 specific measures and 43 of the action plan for Haiphong City and Ho Chi Minh City, respectively. And we judged the implementation of those measures based on the status of budget execution and acquisition. And because of those limitations listed, suggested earlier, we adopted an exploratory approach to analyze the factors influencing the implementation. And this table basically summarizes the factors we adopted in examining the degree of influence in action plan implementation. And some are drawn from the previous studies to look into the formulation of the action plan. And for the reference factor, we examined the level of influence both in terms of vertical and horizontal aspect, And vertical means that how much national government interacts with local city authorities in the form of guidance and direction. And horizontal reference means how much the target cities interact with other cities in Vietnam to uptake know-hows to replicate in their own implementation. And for attributes factor, we looked into 4 different aspects. One is to look into the types, nature of specific measure, and how much those measures align with the city's priority agenda. Other aspects include the degree of local leaders' commitment, local jurisdiction, institutional capacity to connect the action plan with the city's development agenda. And in terms of the findings, the results, we start with the overall implementation rate of the plan. We see the divergence in terms of the progress between the cities, where the Ho Chi Minh City implemented about 17 out of 53 measures, and Haiphong City implemented 37 out of 46 measures by the end of 2019. And we also found out that seemingly lower rate of implementation doesn't necessarily mean that the actions are not taken. But in case of Ho Chi Minh City, we confirmed through stakeholder interviews that many measures are going through sort of steps and procedures towards the budget acquisition. And the difference in implementation rate seems to be partially attributed to different maturity of measures at the time of action plan approval by the city's authority. And it seems that the most of measures constituting Haiphong's action plan have more budgetary certainty at the time of submission, whereas measures in Haiphong City, Ho Chi Minh City's action plan seems still need to go through steps towards budget acquisition even after the approval. So in other words, the basis and the approach for approval by the city authority may be different across the cities. And the diagram here basically summarizes our findings of factors influencing the implementation. In essence, among the 6 key indicators, we observe distinct differences shown in 3 specific indicators between the cities. And these are the types and nature of measure, local leaders' commitment, and local government's institutional capacity. And interestingly, differences observed mainly in attributes factor, but we didn't see much meaningful difference in the reference factors. And as far as the types of measures concerned, among the adaptation measures in action plan for both cities are concerned, most of the measures for Ho Chi Minh City's action plan are characterized as studies and scientific researches type, which mainly rely on scientific operation budget, environmental budget. So in other words, measures are mainly to strengthen enabling environment, which is motivated by individual needs of the departments and the entities for their specific use rather than for the entire city benefit. On the other hand, Haiphong's action plan is consisting mainly of climate proofing infrastructure project based on investment budget. So it looks like Haiphong City strategically selected tangible project with budgetary certainty that leads to higher implementation rate. And Haiphong's measures seems to also display tangible citywide co-benefits, such as upgrading of water management infrastructure that leads to a quality of life and then contributes to Green Ports city initiative that the city leader embraces. So that partly explains the divergence in implementation rate. And the next factor, we observed leaders' commitment and engagement. Sorry. And leadership, I think, led for Ho Chi Minh City, leadership led the city to become the first city to formulate the action plan in 2013, with establishing overarching institution such as the Climate Change Bureau to oversight the climate change action plan implementation. And likewise, our conversation with the Haiphong City leaders indicate that the leaders have the perception that the climate change action plan is a vehicle to achieve the city's green agenda. So both cities demonstrate leadership in guiding the implementation. However, we also found out that the city leadership is not permanent, and the change in leadership often affects the engagement level. And in general, we saw more static leadership in Haiphong, whereas but we saw a sort of shift of leadership between first generation and second generation climate change action plan Ho Chi Minh City. So those are the differences that we observed in terms of the leadership. Sorry. Yep. And then when it comes to the local government institutional capacity, as far as the city's institutional capacity is concerned, both cities took different approach to deal with the national guidance. And the guidance itself is uniformly applied to cities. But while Ho Chi Minh City followed more precisely to the guidance, Haiphong City's climate change action plan structure seems to be more simplified. So combining with the fact that the higher implementation rate in Haiphong's climate change action plan, perhaps it tells us that the city's capacity to interpret the guidance and tailor to the city's context influence the implementation. And also, as for the cross-reference with the sectoral measures with action plans is concerned, a stakeholder interview at Ho Chi Minh City suggests that some sectoral stakeholders intentionally differentiate the measures proposed to the action plan and their core sectoral activities instead of converging both. So what it tells us is that some stakeholders do not yet see the clear benefit or gains of cross-referencing those core sectoral activity with the action plan. And perhaps this leads to the question of how focal points should interact with implementing entities to incentivize cross-referencing to enhance implementation rate. And with those findings, we extended our analysis to think through what are the potential avenues international support could help close the implementation gap. And as for the nature and types of measures is concerned, in order for cities to select more tangible project, I think the best approach is to subscribe a numerical target so that the measures selected will also be quantitative. And so this can be one for future support. And also there's a room for international support to facilitate city authority effort to integrate private sector investment within the city boundary into action plan to make it more comprehensive in coverage. And for the leaders' commitment, I think potential engagement is to join join the sensitization effort to invite city leaders to expose to global community to have a better sense of where the city positions itself along with expectation, perhaps is a starting point. And for the institutional capacity building, establishing robust interagency working relationship and more regularized communication may be a starting point. And also for that, perhaps evidence-based communication tools such as the city-level greenhouse gas inventory and data set can be supported to make the conversation more meaningful. Okay, to wrap up, because we only focused on 6 indicators and factors in this research, the analysis itself, I mean, it's not exhaustive by nature. And to further enrich the quality and the enhance completeness of the analysis, I think we have several recommendations. But firstly, it'd be very nice to replicate the analysis to other cities to see the same if the same findings can be found in other cities. So I'd like to hear views from Thailand case and Malaysia, as well as from Dr. Lam for other provinces, if those hold true or not. Secondly, the impact of physical size cities may also be worth exploring, and how it differentiates coordination arrangement and interaction among stakeholders. For example, the city size of 10 million versus 2 million, how it differentiates in terms of coordination and cost itself. And also difference in physical attributes of the city as the commerce center or city as political center, whether those kind of attributes influences implementation rate. maybe also be worth exploring. So I'll stop here and leave the further discussion to my co-author, Dr. Agagi, later. So thank you very much, and back to you, MC.
Thank you very much, Fukuda-san, for your presentation. Now we have two more presenters, one from Malaysia and one from Thailand. And for Malaysia, I would like to invite Dr. Ho Chin Seom, Professor Low Carbon Asia Research Center, University of Technology in Malaysia. Dr. Ho, could you provide a very quick and short presentation? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kato. A very good day to all. Can you see my slide now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for inviting me for this important conference, and really nice to meet good friends. And I'm Ho Chin Seong from University of Technology Malaysia, and I'll talk about the case of Iskandar, Malaysia, where this is one of the projects by JICA under the SAFSET project, where this is a joint kind of sponsor from JICA and JST Japan. And from this Iskandar case, we have completed, you can see here, we completed our low carbon society blueprint. This is the so-called master plan for decarbonization of Iskandar. And we also carried out inventory studies since 2015 until 2019. So we have already 4 reports of inventory. And I would like to talk about the factors influencing the success implementation of this Iskandar, Malaysia. There are 4 main factors I would like to sum up very quickly. First is it has to be a kind of a strong scientific methodology. Secondly, we must see a visible or real economic growth. And thirdly, there must be a political will or community buy-in. And fourthly, institutional support that is through a proper organization arrangement for sustainability. So we can see that actually the process of successful implementation are not simple. Actually, you have to go through a process of 5 steps I listed out here. As I mentioned just now when talking about methodology, it's basically science to action, where I think just now Fukuda-san have mentioned something to that kind of tangible or something that can be measurable. That's very important. And secondly, it has to be follow a process of PDCA. You can plan, do, check, and act on it. And step 2, it has to be a very ambitious city target. In the case of Iskandar, although the national target is 45%, but we set 48%, it must have a good set of planned action. It must have action measures and programs. And there must be a strong buy-in at the national level, state and city level, and institutional support. That is also very important. Okay, very quickly, I'll just show the evidence to see that. For instance, science to action methodology, we use a very strong AIMS design model, GHG emission calculation, a snapshot model, trying to calculate interactively with the mayors or with the city managers on how this GHG emission will work out if they change certain variables. And of course, we can see that here we have listed about 4 or 5 methodology involved here, action reference database, action work-based breakdown, and so on and so forth. Second part, you need to have a good documented decarbonized or LCS blueprint, low carbon society blueprint. In this case, you can see that we run through a model and we list out 12 actions, 281 program, and we also can explain how the 58% can be achieved. And these are also go by a kind of triple baseline action, economy, community, and environment. The third very important point is the buy-in at political or global level. You can see that Iskandar, Malaysia, actually they have a co-chair. One is the Prime Minister, the other one is the Chief Minister, or we call the governor. So in this case, actually, the plan not only prepared at the Iskandar level, but it's also launched by the Prime Minister himself in 2012. And also at the same time, we brought it to Doha to launch it in COP18. And then subsequently, we also launched other reports such as KSB for Iskandar in 2016. So it's a continuous process of political buy-in. The other part, other than political buy-in, is the private sector. I think in this case, we use very cleverly using the Green Accord Award, whereby private investor or private developers will be given award if they follow certain low carbon measures, and if they participate or if they involve a lot of green actions, for instance, green building, green mobility, or green waste. Buy-in from communities, business communities, as well as authorities themselves. So we also involve the schools. I think schools is an important effect, whereby I think this is whereby we gather a lot of school children to participate, and we work closely with Kyoto Equal Life Challenge program. And then, of course, with that also, we managed to get the state buy-in. We even have a state low carbon council to ensure that all the local authorities have a report card to submit on their low carbon measures. And lastly, I would say that the institutional support are important. I think in all developing countries, academia have to come in, universities have to come in to work together with the policymakers. In this case, actually, we formed Iskandar Research Center at UTM. We call it Low Carbon Research Center. And there we worked a lot of this RCE Iskandar, Regional Center of Expertise, working closely with UNU. And this become a good training hub for local authorities officers who wanted to know more about emission calculation, inventories, and so on and so forth. I think that's all. I'll stop here. Mr. Kato-san, I'll pass back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ho, for your excellent presentation. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Wongkot Wongsapai from Chiang University. Dr. Wongkot, could you make it in 5 minutes, if possible?
Yeah. Definitely, Kato-san. Okay. Just would like to check. You also listen to me quite well and see my presentation,
Kato-san? Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good afternoon and good evening from Thailand. My name is Wongkot Wongsapai on behalf of Thailand Climate Change Master Plan Development Thai team. And first of all, I would like to thank you, JICA, OECC, IJS, and also Kun Somsuk, Nadia, and her team in Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, or BMA, and her team to help us to develop and other sector experts to complete this PowerPoint presentation. I have only two pages PowerPoint. First, I would like to start on Thai side, our experience on the Bangkok Climate Change Master Plan, or CCMP for Bangkok. On the left-hand side, you can see that we have two versions. The first one, we also developed the Climate Change Master Plan, CCMP, the first version, since the year 2013. It is only the 10-year plan, and it is definitely first long-term climate change master plan in Thailand in the major city level, the Bangkok, the capital city of Thailand. We use the base year for the 2013, which is the first year of the Thailand Nationally Appropriate Mitigation Action, or NAMA. The work also supported by JICA and administered by the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration. We have sector, energy sector, transport sector, waste sector, and adaptation sector. And since then, we also implement the first plan, and we also on 6-year plus on 2019, we also doing the stock taking process. We are very happy to tell that we are, according to the BAU, we are 3.69 million ton CO2 lower than our BAU target. This is from the performance of all people in the team. So it is around 8% lower than the target that we can reach up on the year in the year 2019. Then when Thailand implementing the nationally determined contribution or NDC, we also adjust the plan and we would like to make it in the same period with the NDC. So we developed the second version, the second plan of the CCNP, and we have more challenge target with 19% reduction target with the BAU by 2030, along with the NDC. 5 sectors, energy sector, transport sector, waste sector, and green urban planning, including the adaptation. On your right-hand side, you can see that we have the institutional framework, 4 level, but the capacity building do very highly focus mainly on the task force, which we also have 5 task force from 5 sector task force. We do it quite hard in terms of the capacity building since the first CCMP and definitely the second CCMP for Thailand. Most of our capacity building focus by using seminar, workshop, training, and including domestic site visit, including the visit to my university and already international site visit before the COVID-19. And the key topic is all for the technology-based mitigation technology, adaptation technology. And the most important thing is we are now doing the MRV and policy analysis. For the next slide, after we already have developing first version of the CCMP, and now we are ongoing on the second plan on the CCMP. Since last month, we also adopting the questionnaire, and we also have around now, since now we have 47 persons to fill up the questionnaire. I would like to pick up some very interesting questions from the questionnaire, which are now already not yet complete, but I pick up something to present to you first. When we ask them for the most influential events which have most significant effect on the Bangkok capacity building and including the climate change master plan, most of them said that according to Thailand, we implement the NDC and National Adaptation Plan, so they are very concerned on how importance of the climate change now. Some of them also respond according to the Bangkok big flood in the 10 years ago. We also found the big flood that have effect on the behavior of people, so many. And some of them respond that according to the Paris Agreement. So they are thinking that they are the Paris Agreement or the PA make most influential event that give them for the very interesting in the capacity building on the climate change. On some next question, we also asked them on the how about the realize of the Japanese support on the climate change master plan project. Most of them realized that they are getting better, much better on the multi-dimension human resources is developed, and also they also make very proud to say that they also have the project planning and awareness realized on the orange one, and some of them also mentioned that they also adjust their traveling behavior. For example, the carpool something when they got climate change training. And this is, I think, is a co-benefit according to our training. And for the next question, when we ask for the future for them, what is the issue that they would like to say that what is important for them in the future? Most of them interested in the technology base. For example, renewable energy management and also the project management. Some of them also thinking that the budget is very important and database according to the capacity building is very important from them side, and they will say that they may do it in the future. Last selected question from my side that what would be need for the stimulating the Bangkok capacity development. They said that around 75% they said that the budget is very important, and the most important thing is the executive level policy. And the remaining 1/4 or 25%, they said that the raising the climate change awareness to the BMA agency is very important. I would like to conclude that the BMA executive level person decision and support is very important and essential from the questionnaire, and it is definitely the starting point of every single step. Capacity building for something for just a half day for the high level person maybe should be adopted in the future for them. For half day capacity building for them is very important and make everything can be getting better in the future. The budget is also required, and the third one I would like to express is according to the climate change implementation. the project management and the MRV should be emphasized for all task force staff much more. However, we also try to evaluate more on the capacity building demand from them, and from the BMA side, which push them to the right track into the future on their climate change master plan. I would like to stop my presentation right now, and thank you very much for your attention, Professor.
Excellent, Dr. Wonkot, for your presentation. Very interesting result of the questionnaire from BMA officials. Now, I would like to invite for discussants to provide some comments for the session 2. First of all, I would like to invite Dr. Junko Akagi, Research Manager of IGES. Akagi-san, could you provide your comment?
Okay, thank you, Kato-san. Thank you for all the presenters for your excellent presentations. I learned a lot from the cases of Bangkok and also Iskandar, Malaysia, and also Vietnam. And actually, I want to highlight the significance of the research of Mr. Fukuda's, because the designing a capacity building project for local governments is quite difficult because the number of targets is simply too large. So in this sense, I think this kind of research needs to be more developed because it's important in order to prioritize which cities and fields to support and create outcome effectively and efficiently with limited resources. Even and also I want to highlight the important effective approach for capacity building, because I noted that all the presented cities like Bangkok, Iskandar, Malaysia, and also Haiphong and Ho Chi Minh, all those cities are engaging the collaboration with Japanese cities. And I'm personally supporting city-to-city collaboration project for Zero Carbon Society, which is done by the Ministry of the Environment of Japan over the last 7 years. And this scheme, supporting scheme, is to build the capacity of local government staff to through the policy dialogue and also feasibility studies in the public-private partnership manner. On the job training, they can learn a lot. So the mentee and mentor relationship is also very good way of doing the capacity building, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that's a very valuable comment and useful insights for future program development of city-level capacity building. Thank you very much. The next is I would like to invite Dr. Lam from Vietnam. Lam-san, please.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, from my side, I have some discussion about the case of the city in Vietnam. So as you see in the presentation from Fukuda-san, he present two cases of city in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi and Haiphong City. Actually, in Vietnam, we have another city also implementing the CCAP and using the quantitative analysis from the modeling. That is Hanoi City, the capital, and Cần Thơ City in the Mekong Delta region. And in the case of the Ho Chi Minh City and Haiphong City, you see the difference in the size of the city and also different in the progress in implementation of the measure that that's mentioned in the plan. So I agree with the Fukuda-san and the team about finding that the commitment from top management is very important. So you see, both of the two cities have the linkage with the other Japanese sister city. but in different way. And also they get the support from the JICA to implementing the plan, but the progress is very different. So again, it's very sense about the commitment from the top management, and also because of the different size of the city. Ho Chi Minh City is quite large one, and the coordination role of the local department also very important, because they have to in charge to integrate all line department, how to integrate the CCAP with the other socio-economic development plan that been by the other department. So the role of the local coordinator very important. So if they can encourage the involvement of other departments, so it should be successfully implemented with the potential measure. So that is some point I would like to add more on the Fukuda-san presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Lam. Dr. Ho, would you like to add something as your final comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kato. What I would like to say here is it's very important for us to mainstream our low carbon blueprint, or so-called decarbonized plan, into the development plan. I think that would be able to shortcut a lot of process, which we are trying to do now. Actually, we prepare a kind of decarbonized plan, but if we can mainstream into the development plan, example, a master plan or a structure plan or a local plan, that will cut short a lot of time. The second point is the top-down and the bottom-up approach. The top-down approach, I think in this case, whereby having a co-chair, a prime minister, chief minister as the head of a region, the budgetary certainty is there, especially when it comes to low carbon or decarbonization. Infrastructure costs are very expensive. So the top-down process are important. But again, the bottom-up approach is the one that to develop a low-carbon society, the bottom-up approach, the school children, the NGOs, the business community are the ones who support back again to this success of implementation. So I believe actually country to country could be different, but I think in order to ensure success of implementation, those key components like the top-up and bottom-up approach, plus the mainstreaming, and of course ultimately I agree with just now Fukuda-san and Dr. Akagi on capacity building. I think that is one of the mainstream. Why Iskandar is successful? Because UTM work together with the urban managers, and we take them as a master student, and some even come from PhD. So when they go back again, they build their own capacity there. So I think these are some of the ingredients that I think probably we should give some consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ho, for your excellent comments and very insightful. Although we would like to take up some more comments from the floor and also from the chat room, but time is up. So now I would like to request for Professor Fujikura to wrap this up for this very useful session. Fujikura-sensei, may I have your final word to conclude?
Thank you very much. Yes, it is time to close. So I make my remark very short. So we listened to very informative presentation, and many of us, or all of us, feel necessity to further elaborate and develop these studies. So Dr. Memi already kindly distributed her papers. I think it would be very useful to share these presentation material somewhere, maybe on the website somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it is possible. But anyway, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you once again, and for your active participation. And have a nice day and good night. Thank you very much. Oyasumi nasai.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this concludes for today's session. It's been a very rich discussion, and I hope we can continue our communication through website on internet basis. Thank you very much for your participation today.
Thank you.